So how can you play jazz standards at jam sessions and gigs, even if you've never heard them before? Well, today I'm sharing with you my top tips for recognizing chord progressions coming up. A very valuable skill is being able to recognize chord progressions, not only so that you can learn jazz standards by ear, but also in case you happen not to know a tune on a jam session or gig, you're able to pick up those chord progressions relatively quickly. And as for myself personally, as long as a jazz standard has traditional harmony, I'm able to pick up on the chord progressions in the first 1 to 2 times through the form. So if you want to develop this skill, here's how I would go about doing it. Now, tip number 1 is to memorize jazz standards with Roman numeral analysis. So this doesn't really have so much to do with hearing chords just yet. However, this is really critical because when we're hearing chord progressions and recognizing them, we want to be able to put a name to what they are so that we can intellectually understand what they are. So for example, taking a look here at Autumn Leaves, very classic tune that everybody should know how to play. We see that we have 2, 5, 1 chord progressions. So understanding what 2, 5, 1 chord progressions are, understanding the diatonic series, how we get the 6th chord of a key center, what the minor keys are and what chords are in the minor keys are all very important. We also have this minor 2, 5, 1, and just simply understanding what those are helps us to be able to put a name to the sounds that we're actually hearing. So the first step really is, if you aren't familiar with Roman numeral analysis as it goes to chord progressions, start getting familiar with that and understanding what they are, because that's going to be really pivotal for you to be connecting that ear to brain ratio. Now, tip number 2, and possibly one of the most important tips I can give you, is to learn as many jazz standards as possible. As long as you're learning new jazz standards, you're starting to recognize the sounds of common chord progressions, because spoiler alert, a lot of jazz standards have similar chord progressions and similar harmonic movements. So once you learn one jazz standard, the next jazz standard, you're likely to encounter similar chord progressions within them. And the idea when we're trying to recognize chord progressions isn't that we're able to pinpoint what each chord is individually, but rather holistically are able to recognize the general sounds of chord progressions. So take a look at this jazz standard called My Shining Hour, which we studied recently in our Inner Circle membership. Now, one thing that I really like about this tune is that it goes to the 4 chord in the bridge. So it's in the key of E flat major. Okay, so lots of 1, 6, 2, 5 chord progressions up here at the top. And then we eventually get to the bridge where it goes. But the sound of 2 to 5 to 1 to A flat major, which is a 2, 5 to the 4 chord in E flat major, is a really definitive sound that happens a lot in jazz standards. So if my ear can start recognizing the sound of the E flat tonality going to the 4 chord, that means technically any other jazz standard where I hear that movement, I'll be able to start recognizing that sound simply by exposing myself to a jazz standard like My Shining Hour that has this harmonic movement. So this tip is really important. Keep learning as many jazz standards as possible. And by the way, if you need help learning jazz standards, go check out my absolutely free guide. It's called Learn Jazz Standards the Smart Way. Go to learnjazzstandardsthesmartway.com and I'll send that to you. Now, tip number 3 is to start transposing jazz standards. So again, this isn't as much in the ear realm as training our ears as it is starting to train our ability to intellectually understand what the chord progressions mean that we are hearing. So for example, if we look back at Autumn Leaves again, we know that it starts with a 2, 5, 1 chord progression in B flat major. But if I wanted to play Autumn Leaves in a different key, such as E flat major, I would have to know what are the 2 and the 5 and the 1 in E flat major. They're actually F minor 7, B flat 7, and E flat 7. And then over here, I have to know what is the 4 chord in E flat major. We know that it's E flat and B flat, but what is it in E flat? Well, it's A flat. And the 2, 5 to the G minor, what is that in E flat? Well, it's actually a 2, 5 to C minor. So D minor 7 flat 5, G7 to C minor. And why is it important to know all this? Well, A, it's really good for your ears to be able to hear these chord progressions in different keys other than the one you're learning them in. But B, if you were to go to a jam session and someone calls a song you don't know, if you ask them first what is the key of the tune that you're playing, that now gives you the context to relate to what the chords you're hearing are and putting actual names to those chords so you can learn them on the spot. So start transposing different jazz standards into different keys, even if it's just one other key, and this will really help you in the long run. Now, tip number 4 is to use the trial and error method for learning chord progressions by ear. So obviously the stuff we've talked about just in these last 3 tips are big picture stuff to be doing that ultimately are going to best help you to learn chord progressions by ear. But we also have to get into the trenches and do the dirty work. And this is where the trial and error method comes in, which is exactly what it sounds like. You're going to have to just start listening to chord progressions of jazz standards and just trying to figure out on your instrument, no matter what you play, what the notes are or what the chord qualities are. So for example, let's take a look at this mystery chord progression. Obviously, we can't see what the chords are at all, and we're just gonna have to be listening to something by ear. So let's take a listen to what this mystery chord progression sounds like. So what I would do right from the very beginning is just go ahead and play from the very first note and try to figure out what the bass player is playing. So let me play it. Okay, duh. I'm gonna try to find that on my instrument. Okay, this note is a C natural. Now the bass player isn't always playing the roots on the beginning of the chords, but oftentimes it's at least coming back to the root. So in this case, I feel like the bass player is really hanging out on this. So I know that the first chord is C, at least C. Now let's keep listening. Okay, the next note is a G. Now again, I'm doing this very quickly for the sake of this video, but it may take you many, many times to do this if you've never done it before. For me, I'm a little bit quicker. So that's a G. So far we have C, G. Okay, duh, duh. That's the pitch the bass player played. Okay, so it's another C. So we have C for 4 beats. We have a G for 2 beats, and we have a C for another 2 beats. So let's keep listening. Okay, bo, bo was the note I heard the bass player play. So that note is F, F natural, okay? So we have a C, we have a G, we have a C, and now we have an F natural, and I know there's one more chord, so let's listen to it. One more time. Bo, bo. That's a B flat. Again, I'm going through this very quickly. This might take you more time, so don't be discouraged. So far we have C for 4 beats, G and C for 2 beats, and then F for 4 beats, and then B flat. So now that we know what the bass notes are, our goal now is to figure out what the chord qualities are. Now this can get a little bit tricky. What you really want to do, again, is just trial and error. So let's listen to the first chord and really pay attention to the piano this time. Okay, I heard the sound of the piano. What I would do is you could just arpeggiate if you're playing a sax or a trumpet or whatever, or you can play the chords if you're a guitar player like me, but I would go through the 5 different qualities of 7th chords: major, dominant 7, minor 7, half diminished, and fully diminished, and see which one fits. So again, listening to the first chord. Okay, I'm gonna play a C major 7. And honestly, that actually sounds like it fits to me. In fact, it sounds like that, right? So I think it's a C major 7. Now, if I wanted to clarify that, I could try playing a C minor 7. Okay, that didn't match what the piano player was playing. So I'm gonna conclude that I think it's likely that this is a C major 7. Then we can keep going through this process. Just to speed up this process, I found out that this is a C major 7, and then a G minor 7, C7, F major 7, and B flat 7, okay? So that's actually a 1, 2, 5, 2, 4. We talked about that, right, with My Shining Hour. and then a 4 of F, it's the B flat 7, okay? So again, that's the Roman numeral analysis, now also playing into my trial and error method. Now, tip number 5 could help you if you're really not good with hearing what chord qualities sound like, and that is to do interval and chord fundamentals, ear training fundamentals. So this could be as simple as just playing a note like this and asking yourself to sing what the 7th is. So, okay, that's the 7th. Or here's this note, what's the 3rd? Da. Okay, that's the 3rd. Or when we go to chord training fundamentals, chord ear training fundamentals, we could play an entire chord. Okay, so what's the 7th? Do. Okay, that's the 7th. It's a flat 7 because it's a dominant 7th chord. So working on this over time, whether it be with ear training apps or different courses for ear training like we have in our Inner Circle membership, this can be the helpful fundamental basic tools that can help be building blocks. Now, for me personally, if I would really focus on any one of these tips, obviously the one for me is keep learning jazz standards and associating Roman numerals to the sounds that you're hearing. And that way over time, you're just going to start recognizing the sounds of the chord progression as a whole, not as individual chords. And this is the fastest way to start being able to play instant jazz standards, even if you've never heard them before. Now, by the way, if you want to watch another video where I actually go through the trial and error method on a mystery chord progression even more in depth, check out the video on the screen right now. That's going to be a really good one to further get this idea of how we can really figure out how to hear chord progressions by ear. All right, that's all for today's video. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Hit that like button if you found value in this, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.